Yeah, a long way from a stuttering kid. I didn't get enough love.
Welcome to another episode of the How Men Cry podcast. I am your host, as always, Dxtr Spits. And the How Men Cry podcast and mission is aimed at getting 1,000 men to talk more comfortably about vulnerability and mental health, some through the form of this podcast and some through the form of submitted stories where guys just write a small tale about times that they cried or had to show vulnerability. And I am fortunate enough today to be chatting with the good homely for the second time. Actually, I'd like to welcome into the room Bradley. How you doing today?
Doing great. How about yourself?
I am doing well. It's been a bit of a busy day for sure, but it's not necessarily new for me, but it's been good.
Yeah, I feel you. Definitely right there next to you on that busyness. It's wild out there, huh?
Yeah, it really is. But again, just glad that we connected and got to take the time. We started with some technical difficulties, which were 90% on me. So thanks for hanging tight for all of that.
Yeah, no worries.
So, just to kind of kick things off, man, would you like to give the folks at home just a breakdown of who you are and some of the things that you work on?
Yeah, so I'm Bradley Kirouac. I grew up just outside of Detroit, Michigan. My parents divorced at like 13. My dad lived in the basement for 8 years before that. So it was a really weird dynamic, when we talk about those like adverse childhood experiences known as ACEs. They're just, there's a couple there. And so that's where I kind of got started off, and I was like, I need to get out of here. So I joined the Marines when I was 17, served in the Marine Corps for 4 years. And when I came out, I also came out of the closet and started fighting for marriage equality and just trying to like understand who I was, what that meant, because there wasn't a lot of education around that at the time, like a decade ago. And so since then, it's just about continual growth and helping others grow along that journey. And so fast forward, now I'm the area director for Big Brothers Big Sisters, a youth serving organization that provides one-to-one mentoring, because we want to make sure that we can help create change that I've been able to accomplish and many people have through mentorship.
And that's awesome. There's a lot that I want to dig into and kind of ask about there. One, I like how you've had these moments within your story. I think of big transition, is what it kind of sounds like. And I know from just speaking with you before, one, that we have a bunch of parallels within our story, but then secondly, I think when I think of you, a word that kind of comes to mind is just like, I think courage and being able to apply empathy to others. So I just want to commend you on that work first and foremost. Now, an immediate question that comes to mind is like, what was that transition like, kind of coming out of the military, and then, like you said, just like coming out in those moments? It seems like a pretty brave thing to do, So what was that experience like for you?
Oh, this one was tough. I served with these guys for 4 years. I deployed with them, and part of it is when I was in the Marines, I was outed on accident. I told a girlfriend of mine, like just a friend of mine, and they said, hey, yeah, I'm gay. And then she told somebody else nonchalantly. And then when that person started telling other people, the story and the dynamic shifted. And it was a hard thing to go through, because the people that I trusted with my life literally turned their backs on me. Not all of them, but enough to where like I felt like I was at the end of my rope. And it was a really tough place to be at. But what I realized is that if I'm having this struggle with all of my privileges and different aspects of life, the things that I had at that point in time, that means there's other people that are struggling even harder. And it kind of lit a fire under my rear to jump up and say, okay, what does my community need? And it kind of put me on a path to making sure to uplift others and help others through these hard times and these difficult times, and even fighting for my own rights, for marriage equality. So it just put me on this path. But coming to terms with who I am has taken the last decade, like even from that moment when I became more comfortable with just being out and open about my sexuality, I didn't know who I was. So it's taken me a decade to finally find out who I am and continue down the path that I'm going down. So it takes a lot of work. You have to look externally at who's around you, who are those core 5 people. You have to look internally and say, what have I done to damage other people? And how can I change that so I stop damaging other people? And then you start to realize how you could do it for yourself.
Yeah, and that's awesome. Just in so many ways. I mean, you basically encompassed like what I feel like my whole therapy process has been like for the past like 2 years in like one sentence. But yeah, I mean, I appreciate you speaking to that, and I think I've just from knowing in general like a few different folks and that have been within the military. I know there's a lot of potential things that can come out just around the conversation around masculinity and just how things are perceived or kind of presented. And ironically, I was just kind of chatting with another friend of mine just with kind of like a similar struggle. So I really appreciate you just chatting about that openly. Now, do you feel in maybe throughout your life, like you talked about in your childhood and some of those past experiences, like, do you feel like you've, I guess, maybe been presented imagery or thoughts or narratives around just masculinity and what that conversation means to you, I guess maybe from then to now?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I'm a tattooed guy. I have a full sleeve on my left arm, half sleeve almost finished on my right arm. And just those tattoos alone present hypermasculinity. And so it's hard. Sometimes you get judged different ways because of the way your body is, but your mind's not your body,
Yeah.
And this is the body that I was given. And so this is the body I have to live within. And I have a lot of privileges along that line when it comes to masculinity. My husband, he's more flamboyant. He's like more like non-binary. So dresses androgynously, like it's one of those things that, I have to worry about his life sometimes, or, someone driving down the street and yelling the F word at him, which has happened numerous times all around the country as we travel. And so for myself, I have a privilege there that he doesn't, but dealing with that masculinity and making sure that I'm not being a part of the problem of like trying to be hard. And, that's what it comes down to. You have to kind of break that down mentally. And then once you start living your life that way, people start to understand who you are, and they accept that, that you are not just your body.
Yeah. Is that something that you feel like just maybe your overall awareness toward it, is that something that you feel like you kind of grew up with, or do you feel like you have learned and kind of adopted more of those practices over time?
It's definitely one of those things that you learn over time, or I learned over time. Some people are born with different abilities than others, and but mine, when I was a kid, I just wanted to be a Marine. I just wanted to be a Marine. I wanted to go to war, and I don't know why, but it was just, I knew it was a better chance at life than what I maybe would have had otherwise, just because we didn't have all the money in the world, or, we couldn't afford all the things. There was days where even ramen noodles was scarcity when I was growing up, and so building on that and just like not feeling man enough to provide was my thought process then. So then I became this hyper masculine male, went into the Marines, was complete ass, just to be real serious.
Look,
And
I've been there, man. I'm whatever. Continue.
no, exactly. But it's just one of those things, like that's what I was. And when I
Yeah.
got out and I came out and I started to become more comfortable with who I was and what that idea was, I was like, I became much more kind and gentle and loving and caring. And I wanted other people to feel that. So I just knew that I had to live an authentically good intention life,
Mhm.
which is not easy. You have to wake up every day and decide to be good, be nice, to not be a racist. Like, like there's a lot of shit that I was born into that literally I realized that like was racist when I was doing it growing up. And
Sure.
I have my regrets for that.
Yeah.
But I know that every day that I move forward, I live authentically and decide not to practice those same practices that and do those same mistakes.
Yeah. Did you have to go through a process of like forgiving yourself, for even, because I know that's been something that's been kind of difficult for me is like personally just to kind of share. I mean, one, I really resonate with a lot of what you're kind of speaking to because I've had a lot of ugly look in the mirror moments, of just like, man, what the fuck, for lack of better words. And for me, a difficult point from the stand of just like letting go and really trying to heal something is there's been these moments that almost like reoccur, and I'm like working on forgiving, like you're not currently living like that. This is like old. So do you feel like you've had to ever do any of that type of work, or are you just able to kind of leave it in the past and move on easily?
I think I've been doing that work for the last decade. Like the last decade of my life it's taken me 10 years to get to the point where I'm at.
Yeah.
And, it all started off with a poem, and I can recite it a little bit later if you want.
Yeah, sure.
That kind of deal. But it's about rebuilding yourself. It's not really linear. It's like a nonlinear idea of what rebuilding yourself is and the challenges you go through. And it's just, yeah.
Mm. Yeah, and I appreciate that too about just speaking to the time duration for that, because that's definitely been, I've only been doing a process of therapy for a little bit over 2 years now. And I mean, even I had therapy 2 hours before this today, and I've had several times of like, no, I'm moving past, or I'm fine, or this and that, and then you go to another therapy session, and it's like, man, you just you just uncovered, or you have some other work or some stuff that you tapped into. So thank you for just even talking about the amount of time that work's taken. It really is a journey, so.
Well, I think the good thing about it is a podcast like this is going to help shorten that time. It's about the resources. A decade ago, we didn't have the resources we've had the last 3,
Yeah.
4 years. And so now the resources that we have are so powerful, and we're starting to open up and talk about these stories. That's the true impact that something like How Men Cry makes, is you're going to allow people to do that throughout time just by having others talk about their experiences. And so that's why I think this project's so important. I know I'm not trying to just pump you up on your own show or anything, but like that's real. That's the need.
Yeah. Well, honestly, that is a lot of the motivation. I'm going to zoom us out a little bit, but that is a lot of the motivation, has been because when I started looking around, it's like there are and there aren't resources sometimes, I think, and in particular around men. I think it's sometimes a little few and far between, and the other narratives are so aggressive and so everywhere. Like that's the thing that's been, like you spoke to it earlier, of like, looking at some of the past behaviors that were that may have been racist, or things that you didn't like in those moments. Like I was just chatting with a friend about the fact that I can't even listen to the same music, like some of the same content or other things from previous periods, because I'm like, God, like just listening to things through a different ear or viewing things through a different set of eyes. It's like, man, this shit is deep. Like it's it's crazy. So Yeah. But yeah, so what I know you've done just so much work with big brothers and big sisters, and it sounds like a lot of that, motivation is just kind of like providing pathways forward for others. What do you feel like you've learned about yourself from doing that type of work?
Wow. I'm always learning about myself because I make that intentional effort. But just kind of backtracking a little bit so people have a little bit of context, is I traveled around the country for 2.5 years in an RV with my husband Matt and our dog Finn, and we had a podcast there at radio called Parklandia, and it was an amazing time. But what I saw was this need around the country for more conversations like this to happen, because these conversations can help change people's perspectives and ideas. And when I was looking around at what I wanted to do, I found Big Brothers Big Sisters, the area director role, which is mostly fundraising, and it is program management, it's recruiting mentors. And when I got here, I was like, no, I don't have the skills for that. And then I realized, I'm like, no, I do. It's door knocking, it's grassroots, it's community building, and through that, just at the thought of applying, I realized that I am worthy of it. I'm worthy to take that shot, to make that jump. And then once I got it, every day since, I've been learning about just how resilient these children are. And when I look at them and I see that same resiliency that I had when I was a kid, and I then go and I look and I say, well, why did I have that? And it's because they have these important people in their lives, these mentors, these parents that are around with them daily, and or even sometimes weekly. But what I realized is that no one in the world is going to be a perfect mentor, and everybody is meant to mentor. There's so many people out there that just don't think that they can be a mentor to somebody else, but they just have to show up with purpose and intent, communicate those three things, and it changes people's lives. And so I realized how I do that in the past, and I practiced it, and then I adapted it to this one-on-one environment, because I used to try to be like, yeah, I want big audiences and this, and it's not about the audience anymore for me. It's about making that one-to-one genuine contact with another human being, like you're doing it with me right now and I'm doing with you. So I've learned that fulfills me more, because I can go talk to a stadium, but I'm not going to connect with everyone in that audience.
Yeah.
And that message is going to sound differently. And that's actually why I kind of like podcasting, is because it feels more intimate, especially when you break that wall and you talk to the audience, right? And they're hearing this and they're saying, whoa, I didn't know that, or I knew that, but I stopped practicing it a long time ago.
Yeah. No, and I love that. And honestly, I can super resonate with the point of like with the audience and stuff. Like I was doing a lot more performance, prior to COVID and what else, shows and music and whatnot. And I do still enjoy doing that. But what I realized is one of the the shows that I even enjoy the most now are like intimate. Like I do a lot of so far sound shows and stuff like that, where the audience, it's like more stripped away sets, more kind of like those raw moments. And of course, with conversations like this, and there's a statement from a book called The Big Leap that talks about, I know he's quoting someone else, so you'll have to forget to find it within the sources, but he talked about like pouring into one relationship is more valuable, like pouring deeply into one relationship is more valuable than pouring in a shallow manner into like 1,000. And I think that you're absolutely right, especially like I see it with youth, I see it with my nieces and nephews, just, taking or trying to have that extra little bit of time to pour into somebody. Like you never know how far it's gonna kind of carry them. So, and that kind of brings up a question, do you feel like you found mentorship at different stages within your life, or is really the lack of that mentorship what motivated you the most?
Yeah, no. I have on my Apple Notes here. I have a list of 50 people who have changed the trajectory of my life.
Mm,
And one's a producer, Audrey. She's really just phenomenal. Like I don't even know how she does it, and she doesn't even think she's doing it sometimes, but she just does it
yeah,
flawlessly, effortlessly. I mean, it maybe not be effortlessly because I know she puts a lot of intent into the world, so that's
yeah,
makes sense. But of course, like my mom's sister, my aunts, some of my cousins, but like there's these like professors or friends that I met along the way, and and none of them were just like this intentional one-on-one time. We just took that one-on-one time together,
sure,
and we learned from each other, and we traded each other's ideas and thoughts and knowledge about the world and how we perceive it, and that's really what it came to. And then sometimes, because I have daddy issues, my daddy used to leave me on the porch. He'd say,
same,
"Hey, I'm gonna be there," and then I'd be on the porch until the street light went out, and my mom said, "Come on in, he's not coming." I'm like, "No, I'm gonna be here."
yeah,
So when people don't show up, when they say they're going to show up, that hits me hard.
yeah,
But there's those people that just showed up. We had an ice cream cone. We had a Coke or a drink,
yeah,
but it's one of those things like that's just the importance in this world that we when we show up for each other one on one,
yeah,
or if it's picking up me and my couple friends, like whatever it is. But like when people show up, that means the world to me.
yeah. Oh, now I feel bad because I left you in the waiting room alone. I was signed into the wrong stream.
No, don't worry. Don't worry about that.
Because it
No,
was
that's good.
funny though.
You still showed up, and it was only 10 minutes, not 10 hours. You're good.
Yeah, that's fair. I was signed in. It's been a long week. I was signed into the wrong waiting room. You were in the right one. I
It's all
was
right.
just I was like, what is going on? No, but no, I definitely, there are very specific moments in my past of individuals who have said, it's been like one sentence sometimes that have legitimately changed my entire just perspective towards a lot of things. And Audrey, I mean, that's probably the most mentioned name within this podcast. So like, who is this Audrey person? But I shot the first episode with her. So, but it's just like, I fully agree. Like those people that, and to your point of even like having the five that you surround yourself with, like I've been taking that so much more seriously, in terms of like the network or the energy that I'm around, and the people that I really go to and rely on, and just not spending the time kind of chasing or pouring into those relationships that don't, or that drain from you, which I think is sometimes a like trauma response. We're like running back to those. But one thing that you did mention is I'm currently looking at RVs, by the way. I have been meaning to call you separately about this, because that is it is up there. I'm looking at a couple different pathways of where to go with the start of next year, and that one's pretty high up there in terms of a possibility. And who knows, I may be taking How Men Cry on the road, to have conversations with guys all around the nation. That's a very strong possibility.
I love it.
Um, yeah. So from doing that, I do have a question with that. I wasn't just so, so from doing that, you said that one of the things that you took away, was just the need for that mentorship and for the youth. What else do you feel like you learned in that time of just traveling around and that more nomadic kind of approach to life?
That the United States is more diverse than most people realize. I mean,
Mm,
there's this like cross-cultural connection in Juarez and El Paso, where it feels like you're in Mexico, but it feels like you're in the States, and it's wild and it's beautiful. And then you go up to Pinedale, Wyoming, and they have a little rodeo there that's the Old West, and it's still alive and it's still there. And then you go to California and you have the surfers, and you go to New Orleans and you have this like jazz fueled environment. I mean, right now, I'm sorry that they're going through another tragic incident, and it's more than just Bourbon Street, but there's so many different identities in the United States, and because we tend to only travel once a year, we don't realize that that's not like sometimes there's this disconnect with people's minds that when they go there that one time a year, that's all for them, and that's just a fake life. But no, that's a genuine life. That's somebody's lived life. And when you see it so rapidly, every 3 to 4 days, you're in a new community and seeing a new culture and a new ideas on life. It just expands your mind to really be more empathetic, compassionate, if you do it right. There's some people that go to an RV park, sit there and not explore and adventure. And that just might be because, there's people that like do RV life just because it's cheaper and they can't afford to do all the extra things.
Yeah.
I had that privilege where I was able to. And I just loved learning about the United States, and the true part of United is being all of those things.
Yeah.
And sometimes we forget about that because we get caught up in the 9 to the 5 to the day and the life and the what's going on, putting food on the table sometimes, whatever that might be.
Yeah, no, I love that. And that's honestly a lot of my motivation. Like I've been looking at it where I'm like, I can't find a reason why not. Like I can actually still work remotely, and still be able to do it. So I'm looking at all the possible options of, what to do with Wi-Fi and the different things of how you can do, keep your work alive if you still have to do so. And it's pathways. I mean, it's people that are doing it. And that's one thing that I've never seen people regret the amount of experience that they soak in from just doing something like that. And I think that there's like a bigger metaphor in what you were saying about just like you said, all the different identities and these kind of lived experiences. And I think one thing that I've been challenging within myself personally is that I grew up in a set of experiences that were, or a set of identities that chased very similar things, like just within the area that I was in, like very similar mentalities of this is the kind of shoes that you wear, this is the kind of blah that you do, this is what and the best things that have ever happened to me in my life have been when I've pushed against or challenged a lot of those norms to have a different experience. And I think that that's an amazing way that you pursued doing that and finding that. So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's kind of like this aspect of like breaking through the marketing almost. When you see it so rapidly, you're like, oh, that's marketing. People are marketing to it. Like, your shoes, the ones that you were just talking about, like, are buying the same things. That is community and that is culture, and you can bond over those things, and that's fine. I know a lot of people who do, and I think it's great. Not putting it down, but there's a point where it becomes problematic when you subscribe to something so hard that you never challenge it because you're never challenging ideas, and then you're just following somebody else's lead instead of saying, wait a minute, what else is going on in the world? Let me take this opportunity and go through that doorway.
Yeah. No, I love it. It's awesome. So switching gears a little bit, what does the word vulnerability mean to you, and how do you relate to it?
Vulnerability is recognizing that you're probably wrong. Like tomorrow I'm going to think I'm completely right about something, but I'm probably going to be wrong. I'm going to learn later in life that was wrong. And you just have to be good with that. You have to be good with being wrong, but if you're trying and you're trying something new, that's not purposefully damaging, of course, then you can expand upon who you are as a person. So vulnerability is growth.
Yeah. Love it. And that, I love that statement in general, that you're probably wrong, because you're probably right that we're probably all wrong about most of the things.
We'll find out. Maybe I'll be wrong next week.
You know, I feel like it's funny because I just made a social media post about that where I'm just like, the more certain that somebody seems about things nowadays, usually the less trusting I am of that opinion. Because it's just like, and that, I think that's from working in STEM and from working in like the sciences as well, is I'm like, I don't, I mean, I know some, but a lot of this, especially research scientists who like really, really delve into research, they're not as like certain in speech about what I think even the people that perceive their research are. They're like, well, this is what we think is going on. This is what, but we're out here just, I know it. It's crazy. So on in that same note of just vulnerability, which is something that I would say I think you honestly convey. I mean, speaking on this podcast has felt no different than, you know, when we were just catching up on the phone before. So I would say like when I am talking about the project, just How Men Cry and the terms of How Men Cry, it is to have us speak more about vulnerability and mental health. And something that comes to mind for me is like you've gone through so many ups and downs within life. You know, how have you kept your balance with your mental health, or kept yourself in a decent mental health space through all of that life transition?
I journal. I journal about the good, the bad, and the ugly. I make sure to write down my thoughts so that way I can process them and then go back and reflect upon them. That's huge. And I'm not talking about a handwritten journal. You know, I'm talking about my Apple Notes. So if I ever die, I need to make sure that there's like a self-destruct button on this thing. Or when I die. Man, the ugly is in there. And for anyone watching this, I'm going to start hiring security.
You like, get this out of here. Yeah, burn all my shit. When this is all, hey, I'm going to say it on this pot, burn all my shit.
Burn it down. No, yeah, but journaling is honestly one of the most important aspects of it. And it's not like you have to write this whole book. I've tried that. I've started it, you know, like 10 chapters, not 10 chapters, like 10 pages that I wrote in one day. And then I have 10 words I wrote in one day. So don't put too much pressure on the idea of journaling and what it has to be effective, because really you're just trying to catalog your notes to see your growth and where you were at and where you're at now. And it's beautiful when you get to look back on it, because I've been doing it about 4 or 5 years now. And that has been so life-changing and so huge. And it's all on my phone, you know?
Yeah. No, I love it. And that's a great way of just mirroring, you know, to yourself. It's being your own mirror. And that's one of the major components of therapy and you know, healing work. So that's amazing. I do the same thing. I journal pretty much. I don't necessarily write a new journal entry every day, but I do in some form, you know, writing or reflecting, even if through meditation. I actually try to meditate and reflect on my days. You know, as kind of this like mental capturing of it.
And that's super important to say, is that like you don't have to journal every day. I journal maybe 3 times a month, and that's good enough. And then but then you subset it with like meditation, and now it feels like you're journaling 6 days a month. And then you work out, now you got 20 days a month, you know? So like journaling is just like, it's just expressing that energy that you have, and you can do that physically and by written word. But to me, journaling is like this practice. It's not just the physicality of writing down something on a book. So just for some people that need to hear it, they need to realize that, oh, when I go to the gym, that's me journaling, putting out my emotions, getting out my grunts, getting out my sweat, my tears, whatever it is for you. I'm not saying that we all cry every time we go to the gym, but if you do, guess what? That's beautiful, because how men cry is different.
Well, so I mean, I could not have written a better segue, because the next thing I was going to ask or state is that, when we talk about men crying, it's not just about this idea of physical tears. It is about these other means of expression, so other than journaling, would you, feel comfortable sharing a story of either a time that you cried or maybe just another means of how you may cry out, healthy or unhealthy?
Yeah. I'm crying out right now a lot about, there's this gentleman who's currently on death row here in Oklahoma. His name is Julius Jones. And his story has just been so heartbreaking because he was quite obviously framed and the government still pinned him with it. And the Pardon and Parole Board just said, you know what, we need to give him a reduced sentence of life with the possibility of parole. Well, the governor said, nope, we're going to wait for the clemency hearing. But meanwhile, the state is now setting the death sentence for November 18th. And so when I look at that and I say, wow, that's the system. And it makes me frustrated because like it's just not right, because he was put in by the system 20 years ago, which we know is 100% flawed. It's still flawed today, but and it's just the whole thing isn't right. And so I've been reaching out to people, trying to find more information and figure out more about it, because I'm trying to find the best ways to advocate about it. And it's really tough because I don't know. I really don't. I knew people like him. I maybe was even like him when I was a kid. Whereas getting into small trouble and petty trouble, and I realized that, my privilege was that I was white. So this framing would never happen, or if it did happen, they would have done the right thing and did the right research and really done it right. And so I'm frustrated because I'm recognizing my privilege within this, how it could have been me, how it could be any one of us, any one of my friends growing up. And it's been pretty brutal, honestly. And again, I know people that care about him. I don't know what to do. Right. And so this is even me crying out now, is just saying,
sure.
I don't know. Yeah. I don't know. And that's what like tears are. That's what crying is like this. I don't know what to do. And it's important.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you sharing that. And no, I mean, I'm hopefully, we can bring even more awareness or something with the release. I actually will keep that in mind, even in terms of the order of trying to drop things. Maybe we'll, try to scoot you a little sooner within the line in terms of podcast release. So maybe we can bring some more awareness in that way as well. And I'm not a fan of what we're doing with the prison systems in general. And not to take away from any of the movements going on, but when I think of or even see, numbers towards police killings, and then numbers towards mass incarceration in general, I'm not in a comparison or like contest thing. I'm just saying the amount of people just caught within the system on a regular basis is like overwhelming. And it's like people's lives being ruined over, like, I mean, quite frankly, dumb shit sometimes, like just really simple stuff, or, weed charges or something it's just, so I definitely, I appreciate you sharing that and just bringing that to more of a public platform. So I have a couple more questions for you. This one is always one of my personal favorite to ask. I hope this isn't getting picked up in the microphone, but my dog is currently snoring.
No, he's good. I can't hear him.
She does like these weird when she dreams, she does really weird stuff in the background. I'm not even cutting that out. So if it's in there, it's just that'll be in the episode.
You got to share it.
Yeah, I mean, she's anyway. So this question I think is crucially important, and it is, what do you feel the world needs more of from men?
Well, everyone needs to be putting more good into the world than negative. So I don't know if that applies just to men, but if it is a man-to-man conversation, then yeah, you know what? Like, we need to put more positivity in the world. We need to embrace each other, not be scared, of showing that emotion. And I think that's important. We really need to do it, and it just takes an ounce of work. It's not hard, but people forget that they need to be nice. So next time someone messes up your order, you don't have to yell at them. You don't have to be on edge and just be mean. You can say, hey, you know what? This was the wrong thing. It didn't work. And they're going to have a better day, and you're going to have a better day because you came to this resolution without a conflict, Okay, somebody bumped into you. No big deal. Like, oh, hey, sorry about that. Didn't mean that at all. And you just keep on going, it takes no effort at all to be more kind. It does take a ton of effort to create conflict and to be aggressive.
No, I definitely appreciate that, and just a little bit of empathy and stuff. I mean, it really does go a long way. I know there's that like one campaign that's like, empathy or something. It might be empathy, and it's like pass it along, and they just show these small acts of kindness. And you're right. It sets a different tone within the world. It's a hard one for me to accept because I'm petty. And I'm working on that part.
I never said I wasn't petty either.
Yeah, I've been a jerk for many years. So I'm still walking that one back. So if y'all caught me on the wrong day, I ain't all right. I'm working on that. But to flip that question a bit, is how does the world help men to get there, or help all of us to get there?
How does the world? Well, honestly, it's up to us to make the first 5 steps before somebody else does something for us. So if you're not ready to take those first 5 steps, then why would I expect the world to change for me if I'm not going to take those 5 steps forward? Yeah, I mean, that's it. That I don't have it. I can't expect the world to do it for me. We need to take those steps as men to make the change. And I guess you're going to see that the world is going to come follow you, and they're going to start taking those steps forward too, because they'll notice.
Yeah. No, I love it, man. Absolutely love it. And actually, you made mention of a poem earlier. If you have interest, and if you got the time, I know we're running right up on our, well, at least for my time, but I'm willing to be a little late for this meeting. Would you care to share? Because I think it'd be cool to just kind of close out an episode with something like that. And selfishly, because I just want to hear the poem. So.
Absolutely. No. So this poem is about rebuilding yourself, and it's not, you can't read it and just think, oh, this is what it means, because it means something different every single day. Because I've said it to myself for the last decade.
Wow.
So every single day for the last decade, I say it to myself. So
wow.
We dream of a compass that points towards that nebula in the sky, the most fascinating assassination of matter, which within time creates the most magnificent of stars. The sun's flare creates an emanation of glimmer in your eye. You're rebirthed, reclaimed, self-sufficient without being cloaked in your hallucination. You construct a phenomenon countless people will never observe. For establishing the authentic self is infrequently a dilemma in your boots. But being understood is going to be like walking on the moon. Many will put much effort to place their feet on your terrain, but will ricochet off the path. Do not let this derail you from your journey, for you put many on the right track. You are a symbol sent from the sun that radiates enchantment on our spirits. And the love I share with you is overwhelmingly indescribable and can only be exhibited like the reoccurring universe.
Mic drop. Reverend Bradley, we in here dropping bombs and bars. Listen, I love it. I love it. That's a great. I would actually love to see that written. I don't know if you can text it to me or something, but I would actually love to see that. No, thank you for just sharing that, and for just sharing. I mean, all of just the amazing talking points today, and just the amount of vulnerability within all of your answers. I felt that it was a really rich, conversation, and I hope that, the listeners feel the same way. And is there any, shameless plugs or anything you want to leave for the listeners at home, or where they can find you or work that you're doing?
Absolutely. So my biggest thing is, my shameless plug is that we need more mentors. We need men in particularly. We need mentors at Big Brothers Big Sisters all across America and in Canada. There is a lot of work to be done, and I promise you, and you can come and I'll give you $100 if I'm wrong, but if you become a mentor for 1 year for Big Brothers Big Sisters and you don't learn and grow from it, I'll give you that $100. I would say 1,000, but I ain't rich, so I probably only have that $100 at that time. So
he's like, I'm not betting all that right now. No, I appreciate it, and honestly, it actually is a program that I've looked into several times. I kind of do. Just in general, some forms of just mentoring, but that actually is a program that I've looked into several times, because I think it's like beautiful work. And I agree, just be like you said, showing up. And I mean, showing up for people. And I can even end on that note of, you showed up today, and I really appreciate that, and for taking out the time and just everything that you've shared today. So thank you for doing so.
No, thank you. I appreciate you allowing me to be on here, and it was a healing conversation. I appreciate that.
No, I hope so, man. I mean, I'll keep learning from every one of these combos. It's helped me even from my own standpoint of like listening, empathizing, like, and just really getting to know folks. Like, because I don't know if we would have gone in this type of depth, even just in a regular casual conversation. So it really allows me to also hear, from you and get to know you differently as well. So yeah, man, it's awesome.
Thanks.
All right. So for any of the listeners at home, if you want to submit a How Men Cry story, you can do so at howmencry.com, or follow along on How Men Cry on IG, all the social media platforms. And let's just continue this work and have more men talking about vulnerability and mental health. And I'm going to kick us out of this room, play a little outro, but just thank you again, Bradley, for just taking the time. And I'm going to call you about the RV situation because I need help.
I got you.
Thanks again, man.
Have a good one.
All right, take care.
Yeah, a long way from a stuttering kid. I didn't get enough love.